I really didn't get to know Ashley and her family until I found a dog running down a road near my house in northern Durham County. The dog had no, Ralph is holding up a picture of said dog, and you can find out more about, I called her Vera. She's had a different name since then. Birdie, I couldn't remember, so thanks. And the dog had no identification of any kind. And so, but she got in the car with me, and she was the sweetest, most active dog I have met in my life. And she stayed with me for a little while. My memory of her, and I am going to be quick, is me being so tired from running around with her. I went to sleep on the sofa at my house, and Vera/Birdie crawled up on my side and just slept with me, and then she was ready to go again. It was not a time when I could have a dog. So I posted her picture online, and Ashley messages me and said, "We'd like to meet then, Vera." And Ashley and her two daughters came out to the kennel where I keep my dog, and it was love at first sight. And Birdie has been a member of their household ever since then, and I've requested a play date again with Birdie once the Nisslers move to their new home, so that will be great. Ashley is involved in so many things. I follow her on Facebook, and I'm so inspired by the creativity that she possesses, and also her passion for social justice, and she's been involved with the Orange County Bail Bonds Project for a long, long time. And she asked to have this program tonight with her colleagues from the Orange County Criminal Justice Resource Center to tell them about the collaborative work they've been doing, especially around and I hope I have the terms right, around folks who are perhaps awaiting sentencing, who may go into the system, who have mental health challenges. So Ashley, I'll let you say more.
I too will be very brief. Birdie is still the sweetest dog. If you ever want to meet her, come on over. I've been so thankful to this church and community for being supportive of the Orange County Bail Bond Justice Project. This work gave me the opportunity yesterday to speak with a group of Duke students who wanted to learn more about bail and bail practices and the work we do. And I think one of the most important things I told them that I've learned from this process, and I think is embodied in the work the Criminal Justice Resources Department does, is that acknowledging the dignity of our neighbors who are in jail, even if we can't see them through those walls, is incredibly important to holding our own dignity. We belittle ourselves if we're not supporting them, even if they're going through something we might not understand or struggle with accepting. The Orange County Bail Bond Justice Project has been active for 5 years. As many of you know, we initially started simply doing court observation and offering bail assistance. Since then, we decided to expand bail assistance because judges like Judge Pendergrass, who's here with us tonight as well, we're actually doing a really great job of looking at cases holistically during first appearances and trying to understand the whole situation, whether the individual was struggling with issues and needed greater supports, whether they had family in the community who could support them and keep them on track with their job while they were going through the process pre-trial. So since Orange County was really working to do a good job pre-trial, we actually started offering bail assistance to Orange County residents as well and the surrounding counties, and that has been useful and allowed us to keep people, say, out of Alamance County Jail so they could get assistance with substance abuse issues and things like that, and I'm happy to talk with you more about that. And as part of expanding what we do, we have been working with CJRD to offer transportation vouchers so that people can get to court and don't end up back in jail because they've missed court. We I've been working with the Fines and Fees program, or the criminal debt program, here in Chapel Hill, so that people don't lose their license because they still have some criminal debt. And most recently, we decided to fund a new position in the Criminal Justice Resource Department so that Allie Waters can go into the jail and assess people with mental health issues to figure out what kind of support they need so that they're not suffering while they're in jail, and perhaps eventually have a better outcome because they're more cognizant of what's going on around them. It's safer for everybody as well, for them and for the people they're in jail with. I am not going to do huge introductions because I think you can do that better yourselves. Tonight we have with us Kate Finhagen from the Criminal Justice Resource Department and Allie Waters, who just recently started working with them in this role. And so I'll invite Kate up first. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight.
Sorry, I'm wearing sneakers, although I think I'm in good company here. I normally, when I come from work, have work shoes on, but I broke my foot, and this is my first day out of my boots, so I'm very excited about that. So, and I'm glad to see so many other sneakers around here. So my name's Kate Finhagen. As Ashley said, I could not be more indebted to the Orange County Bail Bond Justice Project. It has really been transformational. I mean, we have a wonderful group of stakeholders here, and I'm not just saying that because Judge Pendergrass is sitting right there, but can you not hear me? Okay, better? We have a wonderful group of court stakeholders here, and I really mean that sincerely. I am a criminal defense attorney by practice. I worked in the Philadelphia Public Defender's Office. After I graduated from UNC in 1994, I worked in the Bronx Defenders in New York. I also was the Deputy Capital Defender here in Durham at the Capital Defender's Office. So I came from representing folks, sometimes on the most serious cases where at that point the damage was done, and really all you could do sometimes was keep the death penalty off the table. And so a lot of the work I did representing people in capital cases was mitigation work. And as you might imagine, almost everyone that I represented had suffered severe trauma and had a lot of other things going on in their lives that got them to the place that they were by the time I saw them. So Orange County in 2015 opened the Criminal Justice Resource Department with the specific purpose of reducing unnecessary pretrial incarceration rates, but also to supporting folks who are at risk of being impacted by the criminal legal system, who are in the criminal legal system and need assistance and resources and therapeutic interventions, and also supporting people who are re-entering into our community from prison or incarceration. And so we house the pretrial services, which is Ted Dorsey, who has been doing this for a long, long time and is, I think, the best in the state, if not the country. I would love to have him come here and talk to you at some point about the work that he does day in and day out, seeing people. I just got a text from him recently from First Appearances Today. One of the gentlemen who was, were you on that, Judge Pendergrass? Or anyways. So Ted, who is our pretrial director, was at First Appearances, and one of the gentlemen who has been in and out of our criminal legal system a lot, got on camera at First Appearances and was very irate that his puppy had been taken to the animal shelter when he was arrested. Judge released him. Ted took him, got him out from the jail, took him down to the animal shelter, and he sent us a picture of the gentleman with his puppy on their way home. So that is the kind of personal type of pretrial work that Ted Dorsey does. It's constantly amazing. But in addition to pretrial, which is a big part of why we're here tonight, we also do house the local reentry council. We house about 4 deflection and diversion programs now, one of which is devoted to substance use, one is devoted to serious mental health, one is for first-time offenders, and one is for juveniles. So for deflection and diversion, and by that I mean deflecting means they never come into the criminal justice system. So a law enforcement officer can do a warm handoff to a social worker or a clinician. And then diversion is when they come into the criminal legal system, they can be diverted out by some kind of an alternative program, therapeutic program, and then their charges are dismissed. And then we have a Restoration Legal Counsel, another attorney who does amazing work trying to get people's driver's license restored so they can legally drive again, also chairs the Fines and Fees Committee that what do you call it, the Criminal Justice Debt Program that Chapel Hill and Orange County started to help people with relieving their criminal justice debt. And the Bail Bond Justice Project has contributed and continues to contribute to that fund, and he chairs that. But most importantly, he works on expunctions and driver's license restorations. So that's why we call him a restoration attorney, because he's restoring people back to the rights and privileges that they had previously enjoyed. And he does amazing work as well. I'm very, very fortunate. Allison Zirkle, who was supposed to be here tonight, is ill, unfortunately, and so she couldn't be here, but she's our clinical coordinator, and we now have 5 or 6 clinicians in our office who do direct work with people in the court system as well as in our detention center. So when Allison told us last year, after 14 years, she'd been with us since we opened in 2015, but had been doing this work for a long time, creating alternative sentencing plans and looking to help people get released from incarceration into more therapeutic settings, that she wanted to go part-time so she could start doing some of her own therapy, private therapy work. We were so glad that she said she would stay on part-time, but that left a big gap for us. She does all of our clinical supervision, and since we have 4 clinicians and a whole other set of case managers doing our treatment courts and our street outreach program, so rad, she was going to devote her time to continuing to do that. And also another big push that we've had is the starting Suboxone in our detention facility. So the medication-assisted treatment and medication for opioid use disorder that previously did not exist in our detention center, but has been a lifesaver. And our sheriff agreed to get that underway with Allison's help. So she's focused. We initially started it with just continuing people on their medication, and now we've started induction, which means people who come into our jail with an opioid use disorder not only can continue their medication, they now can get it started while they're there, which is really, really significant to reducing the risk of overdose deaths. And as many of you probably know, people who are incarcerated with opioid use disorder and get out of incarceration in that first 2 weeks are 40 times more likely than the general public to overdose. And we now have vending machines with free Narcan and naloxone right in the detention center lobby with which is pretty amazing, given that 2 years ago there were most of our sheriff's department, I think, office felt very, very strongly that medication-assisted treatment was just trading one drug for another. So they've not only embraced the medication and have understood the science and the benefits, they now are making sure that they have a vending machine in the jail lobby so that people, as they're leaving the jail, can get life-saving Narcan and naloxone. But when Allison decided she was going to go part-time, we had a big gap. And so we had been working with we've been working with the Bail Bond Justice Project since they first started. Just trying to, we've spent many hours just sort of talking about the pretrial reform and the work that we were doing and the barriers that we had, and how important it was to make sure that people are not unnecessarily held in custody pre-trial. These are people who have not been convicted of anything. They've been charged, and they're entitled to the presumption of innocence, and they're also entitled to the presumption of release. Statutorily, by law, when a person can be held pre-trial, it is because They either present a significant danger to the community, or they are a risk of flight, so they risk of not coming back to court. Other than that, people are presumed to be released prior to trial. And of course, even a couple days in jail can totally change the stability of a person's life. So they can lose their employment, they can lose their housing, they can lose their family. It's just incredibly destructive. So we work really hard, but I have to be honest and say that the Bail Bond Justice Project, having people coming into court and watching our judges with the decision making and issuing reports, was really, really helpful in just sort of raising and the awareness that they've raised in the community too about the impacts of pretrial detention and the inequities that we see there, often by in terms of who is held and who isn't held. As you can imagine, there's pretty significant racial disparities. And we, separately from the Bail Bond Justice Project, have been working really, really hard with the School of Government over the last, 4 years now. And Judge Pendergrass and I were just in a meeting today with a draft of a final report from their research. But we've made tremendous strides. And we were already doing pretty well, but I think the Bail Bond Justice Project and the work that we've done with the School of Government and our judges and magistrates, particularly, who really set those initial bonds. The magistrates set the very initial bonds, and then the judges review them at that first appearance in court, which is where we had our court watchers. It is really exciting to see, and the benefit of our judges and magistrates doing such great work is that we had some extra money, or the Bail Bond Justice Project had extra money that their bail fund didn't need to use to get people out, because we were making sure those people got out. And so the partnership evolved into, how do we help people who are impacted by incarceration and the court system? And the transportation piece is huge. You know, our courthouse is in Hillsborough. We have a courthouse in Chapel Hill as well. But people have to come to court often multiple times over the course of a year sometimes, even over 2 years sometimes. At a minimum, people are coming at least twice, but it's much more likely that cases linger on for longer than that. And that's a huge impediment if you don't have a driver's license, or you don't have a car, or you live out in a rural area. There is a bus that goes, from downtown Chapel Hill to Hillsborough, but other than that, we also, when we built our new detention facility, which is not bigger in terms of cell size, but is bigger in terms of having programming rooms and other resources, medical units, there was no bus stop at that jail, and it's out on Highway 70, about two miles out of downtown Hillsborough. So we were in this predicament that people were at the jail, and when they were released, whether they posted bond or whether even the magistrate released them at their initial appearance, were left, if it was 5 o'clock at night, they were, in wintertime, they were walking along that road if they didn't have a ride that would come and get them. It was dangerous, but it was also deeply upsetting that we hadn't thought about that prior to the detention center being built. And so the Bail Bond Justice Project stepped in when we talked about the need for bus passes. We got the transportation director to set up a bus stop there. So there is a bus that comes till about 4:45 that takes you downtown to Hillsborough, and then into Chapel Hill. You can catch a different bus there. So there's that. But if you don't live in Chapel Hill or Hillsborough, you're not getting home to where you need to be. So the Bail Bond Justice Project generously also gave us an Uber account, so we can Uber people that are in need, that might have to go off to a place where there isn't a bus route. They gave us bus passes for the jail. They gave us, now our newest thing is mobility on demand, which is now in existence at least 8 to 5 during the week and a little bit on weekends, and that is $5 a ride. But we have now an account, thankfully, from the Bail Bond Justice Project to be able to provide mobility on demand for people who need to get to court or to court obligations. So that has been incredible, but it didn't end there. As Ashley mentioned, We have also had an opportunity to have some Bail Bond Justice Project funds help us with commissary needs at the detention center. So some people come into the detention center with no money. Most people have no money. Nobody's putting money on their accounts. And that means they are not eligible to get any of sort of the commissary items that other people get to enjoy. Our jail has pretty good food, I must say, but there are some really nice things in the commissary that they don't get to enjoy, and there's extra phone calls that they aren't able to make. So we've been setting up a fund where they've been able to, the Bail Bond Justice Project has taken names of the people. In fact, we have a couple more that Ashley gave me just the other day. Allie gave me just the other day, that need some help with their commissary while they're in there, which has been really, really a wonderful thing for folks who are not having the best days of their lives while they're sitting at the Orange County Detention Center. And then, all of that largesse was wonderful. And then when we knew Allison was going to be going to part-time, we had worked with Allie she was a social worker and getting her MSW. She spent her last 2 years getting her MSW here at UNC and working with the CJRD and also the Public Defender's Office, because I'm going to let her tell you this, but her interest, of course, has been in people with behavioral health that are impacted by the criminal legal system. And she's done amazing work as a social work intern, and she graduated last year and is now getting her PhD in social work. And we asked if she'd be willing to come back in a part-time role to do the work that Allison wasn't going to be able to do anymore, and that is working with the people with our most serious mental illness that come into our detention center. And we are seeing, as I'm sure Judge Pendergrass and any of our folks who have been in court can tell you, we are seeing so many people with very, very significant behavioral health issues. I mean, it's not surprising. Our hospitals are seeing an overwhelming number. We don't have any beds at our state hospitals that are available for people with serious mental illness. So we have a lot of people suffering. And when you come into the detention center, it is not a therapeutic environment. There are no on-site psychologist or psychiatrist. So one of the things that the CJRD did was make a contract initially with UNC Psychiatry to have UNC psychiatrists come once a week to the detention center to see individuals who are in need of medication management, in need of an assessment and evaluation of their mental health. And Allie is the one who is now heading up that program. So I'm going to turn it over to Allie to let her talk to you about just what she sees day to day and how critical this work is. I mean, we don't want people in our detention center with serious mental health issues. Some people do have serious offenses and they do have to remain incarcerated. But even so, there are other places where they can be incarcerated that are much safer and they can get the treatment that they need. And if they remain in our detention center, we want to make sure that they're on the medications that they need to be. And that they're getting the interventions that they need, and that if we can connect them to resources out in the community and get them out of the detention center, we want to do that because we know it is not the best place for a person with behavioral health issues, whether that's a serious substance use issue or serious mental illness. So I am so grateful for the Bail Bond Justice Project and their funding of this position, and we'll have it for the year, I hope. And I'm going to turn it over to Allie, and I apologize for talking so long.
Hi, is this close enough? Can you hear me? Yes? Okay. All right, excellent. My name is Allie Waters. I am, as Kate mentioned, a social worker. So I went to UNC up the road. You might have heard of it. And completed my Master of Social Work degree last year. But part of the social work master's program is doing a practicum. So you do your coursework, but it's really meant to be grounded in your work out in the world. And so for my 2 years, typically they switch you from year to year to a different placement. But I had the great fortune of landing at Criminal Justice Resource Department, specifically being embedded in the Public Defender's Office, because I had this interest in the intersection of mental health and criminal legal systems. They placed me there my first year. I begged them to keep me there my second year. And it was an excellent fit. So I wanted to speak a little bit to what it was like to be in the Public Defender's Office as a clinical social worker, as well as working with CJRD this year in the new capacity. I think one of the first things that struck me about being in Orange County and the Public Defender's Office there was how much effort people who were not, by their job description, supposed to be social workers or acting in a clinical or therapeutic capacity were trying to do right by people in those ways. So I will watch the public defenders work their tails off to do their job as lawyers, but also do the parts of connecting people to resources when they could, or making sure that they got connected with someone in CJRD who could then further connect them. Watching Kate, who is a lawyer by training, but interacts with clients in what is undeniably a very therapeutic way, just forming relationships and having a lot of attention to dignity and seeing a whole person. I see it in, even the way that many of our judges interact with people when they come in front of them. So I just wanted to, give a really grateful nod to the work that people who are not technically social workers or clinicians are doing to try to meet those same goals, and say that doesn't look like that everywhere. I came from Washington, D.C., and it's a very different landscape there. It's big, it's urban. I was working in community mental health, and oftentimes I felt like my job was to say no to people. No, we don't have a resource that can help you with that, or, no, we can't give you a ride there, or no, that's not something that our agency can do. And the orientation at CJRD, I think, enabled by places like the Bail Bond Justice Program, is to try to say yes whenever possible. I see a lot of problem solving and a lot of creativity and a lot of sort of all hands on deck attitude. So so again, people doing things that are way outside their job description, but also within it, because that's sort of the philosophy behind the group. And so in my current capacity, with CJRD, with the generous support of Bail Bond Justice Program, thank you. It's really great to have a job. And I was so thrilled to be able to stay with, again, this really pretty spectacular group of people and engine that CJRD is. But so in this new position, I'm essentially striving for what I would consider harm reduction. So that's a phrase. I can see some nods that many of you may be familiar with, but it refers to trying to give people dignity and safety and support, but meeting them where they are to do that. So I think the word reduction, hints at, it's not necessarily that we are removing all harms. It's not necessarily that, I don't have the power to release somebody from custody, and maybe they need to be there for other reasons. But what I can do is try to reduce the harms they're experiencing while they are incarcerated. I think that's a lot of what CJRD does. I think that's a lot of what the sort of progressively minded folks in our county do. We're still operating within a system, criminal legal system, that can be really harmful to a lot of people. People come into it with a lot of trauma often, and people experience a lot of trauma while they're in it. So again, it's not that we are eliminating all harm as much as we wish we could, but it is that we are trying to temper it, to reduce it, to offer some threads of humanity and dignity to a person who might be in the worst situation of their life. And so the specific way that's the way that I think about what I'm doing, the specific work that I've gotten to do, is to work really closely with that psychiatry program, so the UNC psychiatry program that Kate described that contracts with the jail, brings in psychiatric providers from UNC. They visit the jail once a week, typically Wednesday mornings. They will meet with our clients who are incarcerated people one-on-one in a sort of visitation chamber. There's plexiglass between them, and they will have a conversation about what is going on with their mental health, perhaps what their history with mental health and mental health treatment has been. Do they also have substance use history? Basically getting a picture of this person and their psychiatric needs. And much like you would with a psychiatric provider in the community, they will then prescribe them medications if that is a support that they want. Medications are in turn acquired and then administered to them by the nursing staff at the jail. And then that information comes back around, so the psychiatrists write notes, share those with the people who are involved in administering medication, as well as me and the clinical team at CJRD. And it goes around again the next week, right? So it's a lot of coordination in the position that I'm in. So you can hear there's multiple groups of people who are involved in this that sort of touch that process. There's psychiatrists, there's folks at CJRD, there are our clients themselves in jail who we really want to center their needs and desires. And then there's the jail staff as well. And sometimes there may even be family members or other folks in the community who are supporting the person who might have additional information about, they couldn't remember when that hospitalization was or what the medication was. So it's a lot of bringing information together to get the fullest picture we can of this person and what they need. And so that's a lot of what my time goes to, but I think the parts that that mean the most to me, I guess, are working directly with folks who are in jail, sitting with them, talking to them about what is going on. I'm not here to talk to you about your case. I'm not here to talk to you about what did or did not happen. It matters to me in that you're a person, what is going on in that sense, but it doesn't affect the care that we're going to give you. What I want to hear about is what's feeling hard for you right now. A lot of the time, it is in part connected to the circumstances that they're in. So a lot of folks come into the jail having some sort of mental health history, whether it's acknowledged or unacknowledged. Some people have been in treatment before, others never have been. So for some folks, it's the very first time that they have spoken to a mental health clinician. Very first time they've ever, gotten psychiatric care. And so those conversations often involve, what is it all about? Like, what are the medication options? What are the risks? What are the benefits? Stigma that might have been holding them back from engaging in care, understanding even their diagnosis, if this is the first time they've really engaged with it and interacted with some around it. And those feel like really meaningful conversations to me. I hope they're meaningful to the people I'm working with. But I think, based on some of the feedback that I have gotten from them, not just about working with me, but about working with folks from CJRD at all, anyone from CJRD, I think there's value in them meeting with and talking to people who are explicitly not there to judge them, who might feel like or might be the only person who is in their corner at that moment. and I think everyone deserves that. Yeah. Great. Yes, please, let me get out of the way. Yeah.
We are hearing from our court observers that it's already having an impact.
It is. Judge Pendergrass, I'm sure can speak to that. So our wonderful legislature passed something called the Pretrial Integrity Act. I always add a lack of right before the integrity piece, but it actually was the district attorney in Mecklenburg who brought this to the legislature, and it modifies the way we do pretrial work here in two very, very significant ways. And both of them involve taking power away from our magistrates. And as it turns out, the district attorney in Mecklenburg who fought for this, and the District Attorneys Association, and to some degree the Sheriff's Association that pushed this, the district attorney in Mecklenburg had a beef with a magistrate that let somebody out or set a very low bond on somebody who went out and committed another offense, and just was outraged, legitimately outraged, I'm sure, but then has now pushed something through that the state has adopted that is going to cause our pretrial detention rates to increase. So how it changed the law, and I actually have copies. So up there I have copies of the Pretrial Integrity Act in case anybody really wants to get into the weeds with it. It's under the TV there. And also brochures from the CJRD if you want to learn all about our programs. And then some other recent things that we've been doing. So feel free to take those on your way out. But the two ways that it changed our pretrial detention laws are that in the first section, it allows another 15 offenses to be deemed no bond cases. So a magistrate used to only have the authority, and a judge authority, to hold somebody with no bond, meaning there's no bond attached, so they can't post bond even if they were a millionaire, in homicide cases. Those are the only cases previous to this law that you could hold somebody without a bond. In this new bill and new law, there's now, I think, 15 additional offenses that a magistrate is not allowed to set a bond on, and a judge can also hold a defendant under a no bond, which means they can't post a bond. Fortunately, that won't impact us all that significantly because our district attorney, Jeff Neiman, has said he's not going to be seeking to hold people without bond typically in these other very serious charges. I mean, they're all felony violent offenses. And those people would have probably had a pretty significant bond set on them by a magistrate to begin with, and then a judge at first appearances. So those people were probably going to be detained, at least initially, and I think they will get an opportunity. So far, we haven't seen anybody held on a non-homicide case with no bond or what's called preventative detention. So that's one part of the bill. But I suspect in a lot of other counties around North Carolina, we're going to see a lot more people being held without bond. And that means that the person who may have a very serious charge, but there may not be very significant evidence against them, will be sitting there without an opportunity to post a bond unless they have a really very strong lawyer and a judge willing to force them to do a detention hearing or a probable cause hearing to see what that evidence is. There's nothing in the bill that requires the district attorney to put on evidence to establish probable cause or to give a judge information about the strength of that case. So potentially people sit there in detention with no ability to post a bond and no idea what the evidence is against them. So that's significant. Again, not as impactful here in Orange County because of our stakeholders. But the second part of the new law is what is going to affect everybody across the state, including us, and that is that a magistrate is not allowed to set a bond at the initial appearance on anybody that currently who comes in on a new charge that currently has a pending case. So, and I'll tell you what we see most often, right? we see a person charged with a trespass, second-degree trespass, a Class 3 misdemeanor, not serious case, would never be held in Orange County on that charge. They've been coming to court. They go back to that place or go to another place they've been trespassed from. They pick up a new trespass charge. The police bring them in. The magistrate is not allowed to set a bond. They are held with no bond until a judge is available. So if they come in on a Friday, that would mean they wouldn't see a judge until Monday at 2 o'clock. Now, fortunately, our stakeholders and our chief district court judge and our magistrates are putting some things in place to try to address these cases quickly, but a magistrate can't touch it. So I could have come in on a first offense and get what's called a deferred prosecution on a very minor offense, and I just had to come to court and show that I had, gone through a class. That's a pending case. It's not over yet. My court date hasn't come yet. And I pick up I get a DWI. That person would not have been held previously. And then we see many people with very minor charges that have pending cases. They're not a danger to the community, as I talked about, sort of what the law requires constitutionally is that they be a danger to the community in terms of, now DWI, multiple DWIs, that would be different, right? But a danger to the persons in the community or a risk of not coming to court. That person's coming to court. They've committed a new trespass. Not really danger to the community. So it is very, very frustrating because now we are seeing people that are going to be held at a minimum, sometimes overnight, sometimes over the weekend, that would have never been held previously. And as I said, even just 1-2 days in detention can have such a huge impact on your housing, your job. If you have mental health or substance use issues, it can cause, pretty serious deterioration. So we are seeing every day now a lot more cases being held that would have never been held before until they can see a judge. Now, again, our county is taking measures because our sheriff doesn't like the law. He doesn't want to see more people coming into the jail that don't need to be there, so he's very upset about it. Our magistrates don't like that their power has been stripped from them and that they have to hold somebody now on a no bond on a minor little case because they have something else pending. And our court stakeholders now are faced with having a lot more cases for first appearances on minor things that they just shouldn't have had to deal with. So they've put, judges are on call over the weekends. We make sure to get everybody on that first appearance at 2 o'clock every day so that if somebody comes in, even if they're held without a bond on a minor case, they will see a judge that day. So we're doing what we can, but it is across the state, we have no doubt that it's going to really raise the numbers of people unnecessarily in pretrial detention. So 2 weeks in, we're only 2 weeks in, but we're getting a study is being done by the School of Government to sort of look at these numbers here in Orange County, and I think ours are going to be somewhat mitigated, so they're going to look at a few other counties. Our hope is that the legislature will rethink this when sheriffs start to realize that their jails are filling up with people that don't need to be there, and maybe they'll come to their senses. So, but anyways, that has been a big sea change for us in the last couple weeks, and we'll see how it plays out. Yeah.
Give people an example of what you meant by trespass. The case that you talked about the day when the gentleman was arrested and his dog was taken to the pound. He had been in the Carborough Plaza area and a store had complained about him. He'd been asked by the court to not go back there. And so he was walking through the parking lot with his dog, and so he was arrested because he was walking through the parking lot. And so it can be something as minor as that. And so he had to go to jail because of that. And so please do let us know if there's something that we can do as a church community to write letters or anything if we need help to try to change this law.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think there are enough judges and hopefully sheriffs and other folks who are going to, I mean, they're the ones that have the District Attorneys Association, the Sheriff's Association, and are more likely to have influence with the legislators to change this, our district court, chief district court judges. But I think if you are friends with, and I mean, Marcia Morey, who many of you know, of course, fought very hard and really worked hard to educate people on the impact that this was going to have. You know, it's still passed, obviously, but our local delegation, I did check, and they all voted. Our senator and our two representatives in the state house did vote against it, so they're already on board. Yeah, if I hear of, and I think there'll be some, if the legislature doesn't change this law, I do think there'll be some challenges that they were waiting for people to be impacted by it first, and now that's starting to happen, so they'll have a plaintiffs group. So yeah, more to come. But it is that silly, and the magistrate's hands are tied. Nothing they can do other than call a judge, which they do. They will call a judge when they think it, and our judges have made themselves very available, because a judge can just set a bond over the phone based on what the magistrate has told them. But you know, a lot of these people come in at 2 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning. Judges are not, I don't think, they probably answer, but our magistrates are kind enough not to call them and wake them up in the middle of the night typically, so.
Do we have time for 1 or 2 questions?
Yeah, we can go until 7:15, so we've got about 10 minutes.
Oh, fabulous. Katie, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just have a very, super, probably silly question, but I'm glad I have it, that I'm not the only one in the room. Earlier in your comment, Kate, you mentioned about the funding being used from the bail bond initiative because there was extra funds available to make the living experience a little bit more pleasurable, if I can use that word. And you mentioned that there's like an opportunity to purchase a second call during the day. Is that what you were referring to?
Yeah. I mean, the sad reality of our detention centers, and this is not Orange County specific, but it has been privatized. All of the other resources, so our commissary is privatized at the detention center, run by an outside for-profit entity. Our phone system for our folks that are in the detention center to make calls is run by Paytel, which is a for-profit. During COVID, we worked really hard to get people free phone calls because visitation wasn't allowed. Now folks do have, when they come into our detention center, they do get a iPad that they can use for free classes that they can take, so that's good, but to be able to use it to make calls and things like that costs money. So there is a free phone call when they come in and a short free phone call. But other than that, people don't have the ability, unless they have money on their accounts, to be able to use what's called the home wave system, which is like a phone call where they can actually see the person that they're talking to, which is nice, but only if you have the funds to be able to do it.
Thanks for sharing that. I guess I'm just thinking, and I'm not the only one in here, who has like an unlimited plan where I can just make as many calls as I would like.
Right.
So I really appreciate that additional information.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, it's isolating, right? It's isolating, and sometimes we have 18-year-olds, in our detention facility. We have people who are sick. We have people whose wife might be pregnant. I mean, we just, and not to be able to have access. And now there's still no in-person visitation yet at our detention facility. So the only visit, other than, lawyers and other folks, but family members can't visit in person yet. Post-COVID, we thought we were getting back there, and now we've sort of seen it come back again. So the home wave and the video link that costs money is really the only way that you can see your family. And some people stay in our detention center on serious cases for up to 2 years, and that, so yeah, it's somewhat close to barbaric.
Quick question. CJRD, is that a governmental or a private organization? And Bail Bond Project is giving you money. Where do they come from? Where do they get their money?
I'll let Ashley speak to that, but the Criminal Justice Resource Department is a department in Orange County. So I work for the commissioners, I work for the county manager. They fund it, and it's very unique to Orange County, and it's because our commissioners are very progressive and really wanted to support the court system, and also to look at ways to reduce pretrial incarceration and support our community members who are impacted. So it's kind of a unique, there are some other criminal justice type departments and organizations in other counties, about 4 other counties in North Carolina, but they do more of the sort of, more of a law enforcement role, more of an administrative role. We've been given just really wonderful access through our stakeholders and through our commissioners to do this work. So we're very fortunate. But yes, I'll let Ashley talk about how they fundraise.
Just to follow up on that, when it's budget time in the county, do let the county commissioners know that you think this work is important, because it's always tight, and this money it has a huge impact on people's lives. How we fundraise, we've been very quiet the past few years because the bails that we were assisting with, they stayed pretty stable. And we've been very lucky that to my knowledge, while I've been president of the Bail Bond Project, every time we've assisted with bail, we've actually received that back, which means people showed up at court and completed those cases that they were involved in. Otherwise, everything else we do, we don't get that money back. So we do rely on donations. And we've just had some really kind people send us money out of the blue. But if you would like to support us, we can, one thing we would very much like to do is be able to provide commissary funds to people who have up to $5 in their account, which I believe still is considered indigent. So far, we've only been able, because funds are limited, to do that for people with $0 in their account. So that would be fabulous, and we want Ally to be able to complete this whole year. We think the fines and fees program should continue to be available to everybody in the county, so think of us. I did not plant you in the audience, promise. Important question, and I'm happy to talk to anybody about that if you would like to know even in more in depth about how we've made these decisions to invest money the way we've invested it, and we're very transparent and upfront about that. Any other questions? Well, fabulous. I really appreciate all of you being here. I hope you've learned a lot. I don't know if we have anybody in our criminal justice system up for election this fall. Do we have anybody up for election this fall? But do be aware of who your judges are. It makes a big difference in people's day-to-day lives. It makes a big difference who your sheriff is. It makes a big difference who your DA is. One of the questions the students asked me yesterday at Duke was, is the criminal justice system partisan? Is it political? If you are electing people into office, it is absolutely political and partisan in the way it trickles down. Even if you have people who are doing their absolute best to not be partisan in their decisions, some people aren't. And it trickles down. So inform yourselves, ask me, and I can get that information for you, the statements people are making. And any data you might need. So thank you so much for being here tonight. And thank you, Binkley.